All right, so tonight's guest is Fabio from FabsFigures. What's going on tonight, Fabio? How you doing, bud?
What's up, man? Thanks for having me.
Hell yeah, hell yeah. So I'm, curious first and foremost because you have so many figures, bro, and I need to know, and I think people want to know, like, how long have you been collecting, like, six scale in particular? Like, it's been a while, right?
Yeah, so I started, I want to say 2009, 2010. Um, I started with Transformers. I started buying a few Transformers, which I still have to this day, completely sealed. Um, After that, I found these MMA figures. I don't know if you could see it. Actually, no, you can't. Let me see if I could show you. They're behind you see them all around the perimeter of the ceiling. So
Oh, okay.
those,
Oh, okay. They're sealed up.
yeah, they're all sealed. Yeah, I never opened any of them. So those were my second collection. So these there were round five MMA and then this MMA brand of again all MMA fighters. And after that, I would shop on eBay, which was like the only place back then that I knew about.
Right.
And so I end up coming across just a hot toy, and it was the Heath Ledger um, Joker from the Dark Knight, but it was a very, very first one. So it was very crappy, very crappy. But again,
Mhm.
Hot Toys was number one back then, like it is right now. And if you compare head sculpt from back then to now, garbage compared to now. But again, back then
Right.
they were the best, the
Oh
best.
yeah.
So I see it and I was like, oh my God, this is awesome. I bought my second one. I bought the Batman. I bought the Batman from the Dark Knight as well. Again, the Christian's build, head sculpt, complete garbage compared to what we get now. But again, they were the best back then as well.
Right.
And that's how I got into it. Then I was like, oh, this is the company to buy. And then boom, it was a couple Batman figures, Jokers, Iron Man, and then forget it. That was it.
So, but you had been collecting previously, just in general, like you're saying, and then you saw this, and it was like a light switched.
My very very first collection was I want to say it wasn't the 6 inch. What are the smaller size figures? They're like this big.
Yeah, the
It,
3.75s.
it might have been the 3.75. My father, I remember, I must have been 5 years old, 5 6 years old. He got for Christmas this one year. He got me the entire line of the GI Joes of that size.
Oh,
I lost them within a week. Like as a 5 6 year old, like they were gone. Like I was missing parts. I don't own a single one to this day. And so that was my very first collection, which I don't have. Then I never collected anything. I always lost everything. I always broke everything. And then when I found that, then with the Transformers, I was like, oh, obviously I'm older now, take care of my stuff better.
right, right.
And again, I never opened them, so they're still, like I said, I have a bunch still sealed. But yeah, that's what happened. That's what happened with that.
And then at some point, you just kind of went a little like full force, right? Because I mean, you have probably the biggest collection probably anybody's ever seen, dude.
So, like and everybody who gets into this knows,
Mm,
there's no such thing as getting one. You just can't. It's impossible.
right.
Even if you're like, oh, I only like this line. Well, when they make something for that line, you're gonna get it because they're just that beautiful. You know what I mean? So slowly, just they came out with this boom, and like I said, back then, Hot Toys, I didn't even know Hot Toys was a thing. So I just kept and it was all eBay. I didn't know about Sideshow, I didn't know about anything. It was all eBay, and I was like, oh wow, I was like, they have so much stuff. Like I said, they had a bunch of Iron Man, they had Terminators back then. So
Right.
I started. So those were all my first were Terminator, Iron Man. And I'm talking about plastic. The very first Iron Man, Terminator, Iron Man, Batman. I don't remember if there was any like any crazy Marvel figures on because I think Iron Man was just what was happening at that time. But yeah, you buy one, then another, and at the time, my wife and I lived in an apartment building. So we
Okay.
were we were in a 2 bedroom apartment, and one bedroom was for my boxes. My collection wasn't even open. It was just straight up boxes. I had nowhere to put them, so that everything stayed in boxes. And so so that's what it was. My when I moved out of that apartment, I had, I want to say, about 60 to 80 boxes that I had to move out of there. Just completely sealed, never opened, just sitting there. Once we bought the house, I said, my basement's either going to be a gym, because I've always been obsessed with the gym, or it's going to be used for my collection. And I said, you know what? I said, I can't have a gym down here, because what am I going to do with all these boxes? So I said, you know what? Let me just turn the basement into my collection room. And oh man, thank God it worked out. When we got the house, the basement wasn't finished, so it was completely raw, bare. All it was, it was concrete foundation all around. So I got, the basement done, custom to what I was planning on doing with it. So I have, my switches are hooked up to the outlet. So when I turn on the switches, the cases turn on. So, I had all that customized because I knew, again, what my plan was going to be, and thank God it worked out.
Right. So yeah, that's what you're saying. It's because it was scratch, you can really plan it without trying to, with minimal destruction, right? Because if it was already like a foundation, you can customize it exactly how you want.
Yep. So that was a good thing about, being able to start from, scratch, pretty much, like bare, like this was my vision. You know what I mean?
Yeah, you have like a blank canvas.
Exactly. And before these cases, believe it or not, I was looking into getting custom cases made out of wood and glass. The bill for that was $34,000. I was like, I'm good. Yeah. I was like, I'm good. And it was gonna, and I don't doubt that it was gonna be beautiful. Like, I know for a fact it would have looked amazing. But $34,000 for wood and glass, like, Deto's will do the job.
Yeah, it's a bit much. It's a bit much. Wow. So your first like 50, 60 Hot Toys then just kind of just sat in boxes essentially
for over a year and a half.
Wow. Okay. Well, I guess that worked out in the end, right? Because I mean, being in a smaller place, where were you even going to fit them?
I couldn't even open it. I didn't even pull one out to display because there was nowhere to go. So I just had the boxes stacked up to on top of each other. Well,
but it definitely paid off then, rather than a gym. I mean, because like you said,
absolutely, you can go to a gym for $20 a month, $10 a month. You know what I mean? You don't need to. You know what I mean? It's not right. It's not worth having a gym if you.
Right. You can't go rent a facility just to you know what I'm saying? Yeah. In comparison, it's such a better deal. Do you think that because you had built, so let's say, so you got into your house, you got the basement, you customized the basement, then you can tell that from the beginning you didn't really have that many figures to fit the entire basement. So was that like some kind of driving force now? You're like, wow, I got this set up and now I got to go crazy with it.
No, because this was never my vision. You know what I mean? Like, I never expected to be this, to have such a big collection. I don't think anybody ever does unless they don't have the room for it. You know what I mean? Like, if you don't have the room for it, you got to stop at some point.
Right. You got to pick and choose, really.
Exactly. So I didn't have to do that for, the first 10 years of collecting. You know what I mean? So, or 9 years or whatever it is. So I didn't have to worry about that because I knew that I had the room. In the beginning now, comparing it to what it looks like now, I posted, pictures in my group of what it looked like when I first started. And it was literally like 5 details in the entire basement. That's 800 square feet with 6 details. You know what I mean?
Oh, it's like a drop in the bucket.
It's empty. So you're like, what the? So that's when you see the how it changed. Because if you see how it started, you're like, wow. But I never, I was never like, oh, now I got to fill up this room. Like, oh my God, this is so empty. Never, because as things were coming out, as figures were coming out, I would buy and then just put in the shelf. Put in the shelf. So once I was like, oh wow, like, now I'm running out of room for shelves, I need another detail. So instead of just getting one, I was like, you know what? I'm going to keep collecting. So let me get 4. Let me get 5. So the most I got, I think at one point was about 8. And, I bought them all, brought them home. And that's when, like, when I got those 8 at the same time, that's when I knew. I was like, wow, like this is like going somewhere, because now I had the entire perimeter of because this wall has always been like this. You know, I got these right away. This wall has always been like this. But from that side, it's all details all around the perimeter. So once I did that, I was like, wow. I was like, then I started getting nervous because I was like, now I really have nowhere else to go.
Right. You can visualize it now. You see that you've set up this display and that it's empty, but you're like, okay, I'm game. Now you're visualizing it.
So now the entire perimeter of the basement is filled. The details are filled. The shelves are filled. So I'm like, oh my God, now what? And then I started looking at the basement. I'm like, where can I put? Happens, that I have against the wall, there's a half a column that they needed to put on because there's a pipe there. So they covered it with like a half a column. And then on the opposite side, in the middle of the basement, there's a suspending column that's holding up, obviously, the top floor or the wood frames from the top of the house, from the basement. Again, he covered that up with sheetrock, so it looks like a column as well. I was like, what if I put the details in between the two columns?
Like kind of creating lanes.
Right. So I was like, but I can't fully close it because if I have details on this side of the column, how am I going to get on the opposite side of the column if I block it off? So it was a lot of design, and I was like, all right, now that I have this here, what am I? So I have to constantly keep, now I'm stuck. I could only have one more detail in this basement at this moment. Just one. So that's why I was talking about when we talk about module cases, like it's a cool idea, if I were to go that route to get rid of all these details to go, on module cases, that's going to be expensive as well, and not only
that's
that,
a huge undertaking.
Not only that, but the wait time. So do I really want to go that route? At some point, it's either going to be stop collecting, start selling, or figure out something to put the figures in that are going to save space, which is the point of those module cases. I think they're awesome.
Yeah, they are. But the thing is those first two options you mentioned, are those even options?
No, that's the thing. So I can't, at this point right now, I would feel completely uncomfortable just stopping cold turkey. Like, I've cut down a lot. I used to get everything. I cut down a lot. I went from getting everything that I saw to I'd rather get multiple Hot Toys than just buy random third parties and stuff like that.
Right, that's what you mean when you're saying everything. Like, you're not just talking every Hot Toy. You're saying this third party, that third party.
100%. I was getting everything. So if whatever came out, whether it was Hot Toys or third party, I was collecting, which is why I have so many. I have about over 800 figures. They're not all Hot Toys. Hot Toys hasn't made 800 figures. You know what I mean? So even when they first started without being licensed, and they were doing whether it was military or whether it was doing doing fire department stuff, they were doing police stuff. They were doing a lot of things before being licensed.
Right, just kind of the generic stuff.
Right, very good figures as well. But I didn't know them back then, and I wasn't going backwards because obviously the quality and what they look like was not good at all. So I didn't go back that far, but I wanted every figure that came out. That's why I have Mattel on my shelves. I have like the random stuff. So I cut down over the years because I was like, you know what? I really like Hot Toys. So if I'm going to keep buying everything, it's just going to take up room where I'm not going to be able to get more Hot Toys. So I cut down on third parties big time.
That makes sense. No, and I think at the time too, like you said, when you started collecting, Hot Toys was still third party. So up to that point, I feel like you're probably like, well, I'm current. I'm current in Hot Toys basically, and I want more, but they're not producing it yet. So let's venture out, and what's this third party company, so on and so forth. But now that they're like very well established, You're like, okay, I can kind of cut back on some of that and focus on more of what I really like.
Right. So that was another thing. So Hot Toys, the competition for Hot Toys at one point was Enterbay. So they were like,
Mm.
back and forth, neck and neck with their products, and so I feel like back then there was more competition as well. Like, like I said, the main one to me, from what I remember, was Enterbay. And Enterbay was making really good. They were making Dragon Ball Z from the movie. They were making figures from the show Prison Break. They were making, and then
Oh yeah, that's right. They did.
yeah, no, they did. They made the one guy from the I forget his name, from Prison Break. Hot Toys made the two brothers. So I had to. So if I had the two brothers from Hot Toys, then I had to get the other guy from Enterbay. So
Right.
so that's what. So then not only that, but being a completist. So that's what makes me the completist. Because it's like, all right, this company made these two figures. Another company made this one figure that belonged to this line. Why wouldn't I get it? Whether it's good or not, I'm like, oh, it's I like collecting. It's a figure. Why not? So that's why I enjoy the being a completist, because I love having. If Hot Toys is not going to make it, why can't somebody else make it and complete the line? You know what I mean? So that's why
Right.
I love the third parties.
Oh yeah, and Enterbay was. I mean, they still are doing pretty decent. But even at that time, they were tackling like all the Hong Kong movies, all the action '80s movies and stuff, and Jet Li and Chow Yun-Fat, and the really cool line that I missed out on.
Yeah, they were doing a lot of that as well. A lot of I want to say, I guess, like local Asian like actor figures. You know what I mean? Like there
Yeah.
was a lot of but there was also, just like you said, there were some that were known, but there was a lot of them that weren't known either. Like I saw a bunch of figures of Asian actors, and I mean the figures look great, but I didn't know who they were. I didn't know where they were from. So I'm like, should I get this? Like, I don't know what it is. So I never got a lot of that stuff. But to this day, they're Michael Jordans, they're basketball figures,
Oh, amazing.
everything they make and debate, amazing. No complaints at all.
Yeah, I'm actually trying to score that Jordan 2-pack right now. I mean, wearing a Chicago Bulls shirt. I mean,
Yeah.
so
That's a
yeah,
great
because
thing.
I missed it too, and it's just, man. So wow, so it just kind of almost took off organically then, really.
That's usually how it happens, unless you're like planning on like I want to build a collection, so I'm going to buy. You know what I mean? I don't think anybody really does that. I think everybody just buys what they like, and as time goes on, that's when you start like, it's like, wow, like
Right.
I have
And then
these many
space
figures
becomes a
now.
factor, and
Exactly. And a lot of people don't have. I'm very lucky, to have what I have. A lot of people don't have the amount of room to be able to collect, and I guarantee you that if people had the room, they would have big collections as well.
oh yeah.
So people, when somebody wants something, really want something, they will do whatever it is they need to do to get that something. So if somebody had the room for a collection, and they're worried about money being an issue to buy figures, believe me when I tell you, they will find a way to get their figures. End of story.
Oh yeah, we all do it. I've done that where you're just trying to, pinch pennies together, and
Exactly.
you're like, oh, I almost okay, I can get this now.
Exactly. So I know for a fact that if people had, because again, a lot of people don't have the room, they live at home, they live, they just don't have the room. Even people who own homes, look at Dante. Dante, has his own home. He owns his home, and he just doesn't have the room. So
Right.
it doesn't really mean that, it has nothing to do with money. You know what I mean? But because people don't have room, and they have plenty of money to go buy, whatever they want. You know what I mean? So
Sure.
it's not about the money, but the space is what is the killer.
Right. Like if he suddenly had a basement like yours, for example, his collection would exponentially get out of control.
Absolutely. And the fact that and the thing is, the fact that he's a YouTuber, and he does reviews, he gets rid of figures after reviews because he has nowhere to put them.
Right.
If he was buying all these day ones from the, obviously from the beginning when he started, and he was able to keep them, Dante would be 200, 300 figures deep right now.
Yeah.
So just because he would have the room to do so, but he has to limit himself and pick and choose, what he really, 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 really likes, so he could keep it.
Yeah, and that's like how I am right now. Like with my background here, this is like my space. I mean, I have another living room area where I have some other stuff, some of the Spider-Mans and things like that. But that you're like, oh well, this is my finite space. This is what I have to work with. So I really have to be selective. And especially in my case, if some things, that's why I've opted out of reviewing figures for the sake of reviewing the figure. Which I would love to do, but I stepped back a bit on that because I'm gonna be in that spot too where I have to sell them. So I just want to get the ones that I want, and those are the ones I'm gonna do for now. But if I had the space, yeah, I would have it just a huge play, just like how you do. You know what I mean? That's how it would happen.
Absolutely, and the thing is also, so for example, like you just said, you have figures in your room, but then you have stuff outside as well.
Right.
I can't afford, if my whole collection is down here, I can't afford putting figures, on the main floor in the bedroom. You know what I mean? Like for what? Like that's weird,
Yeah, it takes away from what you're.
Right.
Yeah.
Exactly. So that's why this is my space down here. When I run out, that's my problem. Then I got to figure out what to do with it.
Well, I think a 𝕄𝔸𝐿𝐼 case would be cool, but then you're really looking at a 2-year project with a lot of money involved, and especially getting rid of all the current display cases that you have. It's going to be a serious enterprise.
That's the thing. So I would have to, number one, get rid of all the details. That's number one. Number two, I have to figure out, because that's another thing. The module cases, they're very cool, but there's so many different sizes and designs and stuff like that. So you really gotta. I really have to figure out, all right, what's my tallest figure? What's my biggest figure? What do I want to put in with these figures? What's going to fit in this one? Do I have to get another big case for this? You know what I mean? So it's a lot of time that I have to take to figure out exactly how many of these, how am I going to stack them up? Where are they going to, you know what I mean? So it's a lot. It's a lot to think about. But I know for a fact that if I get them, it's going to look even way better than it does right now.
Oh, like 100 times better. And not to say that yours doesn't look good by any stretch, but how it would all look uniformed and
exactly.
Very specific to how, like you said, what's the tallest figure? Is this where I'm going to put the quarter scales? Maybe I have a couple statues. Let's mix it all.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And I have to make room, like you said. I have to make room as well. That's another thing. The quarter scales. The quarter scales are a nightmare when it comes to when you don't have enough space.
Right.
They're great, but again, if you don't have the room, so the module cases would have to be stacked up high enough, so where I can maximize the space, but also have to be low enough so I can put quarter scales on top. You know what I mean? So it's like it's tricky.
Well, that's an interesting point. So you do have quarter scale Hot Toys. So it became, you were at a point where you're like, I'm just grabbing everything that's 6 scale. I don't care who makes it. I'm getting it. But then I guess I should say you got to a point where you're like, I just really like Hot Toys. So is that why that love for the Hot Toy brand got you to start picking up quarter scales and getting out of that 6 scale for those purposes?
No. So I was saying yesterday, we were on Dante's stream yesterday, and we actually, that came up. What happened was, I think they came out with a before I started with the quarter scales, it was like a Darth Vader or something like that. And I was like, you know what? I was like, I'm not getting it. And the Darth Vader looked awesome.
The quarter scale, the Return of the Jedi?
Quarter scale, correct. And I was like, you know what? I was like, I can't get into this. I was like, I'm only collecting quarter scale, 6 scale. I'm not getting into the quarter. It's too big. Where am I going to put them? And again, this was when I wasn't at this level yet. I was just, still kind of fresh when that specific quarter scale came out. Then they released Batman it was Batman Begins and The Dark Knight. They did a couple runs for both figures, the Batman Begins and the Dark Knight. Then they came out with a Joker. They came out with a second Joker recently, the last one with the 2 head sculptures. One was barely had any paint on it. You could see actually Heath Ledger's face more than the fully painted one. That came as a sideshow exclusive. Again, I wanted that figure so badly. If that was a Joker to get, it was that one. So I was like, you know what? I'm not getting into that. They released the first Iron Man. Done. That was it for me.
That was it. That was all it took.
That was it. That was it. I was like, you know what? I was like, I have to. I love Iron Man. I was like, I have to. And I've always liked anything that's like robotic, robotic looking. I always love Transformers.
Right. You said you started with Transformers, so you have that affinity there for that style.
Yeah, I've always loved being able to put them together and transform them and stuff like that. So anything robotic, I've always liked. And so that was it. So they made, I believe it was a Mark 42 first, the golden armor with the yellowish gold from Iron Man 3. Then they came out with with the others from Age of Ultron. They came out with then a Mark 3. I saw pictures years ago of a Mark 2 quarter scale that's going to be coming at some point. It was never teased. It was just a picture that I saw, which I'm getting. I bought a quarter scale RoboCop, which is beautiful. I forget who makes it. I don't know if it's Enterbay. It might be Enterbay.
Yeah, because I don't think it was Hot Toys.
No, it wasn't Hot Toys. It was definitely not Hot Toys. I'm pretty sure it was Enterbay. The head sculpt is beautiful. The figure is beautiful. It comes with a like a little sound box that says OCP. It's like a shape of the OCP logo. And you press the button and it's supposed to talk. But what happened was when I bought the figure from Big Bad Toy Store, because they had it, it was like a damaged box type figure. So, so it was like super cheap. I was like, oh, what's if as long as the figure's not damaged, I don't care. So I got the figure, figure's perfect, but the voice box wasn't working. And I changed the batteries and stuff. It doesn't. It made sounds for like a couple seconds the very first day I got it, and then it never worked again. But yeah, so that's why I got that RoboCop, and then obviously the two Mandalorians that we spoke about. You have to get those, and the Boba Fett that's coming as well. So that's what
amazing.
I mean. Like, yeah, so one thing leads to another, and that's how you get. That's how you get deep.
Yeah, no, that's true. And I mean, you've been that was a long time ago then. Like you've been collecting essentially at the birth of Hot Toys, which was like what, 04, 05, 06?
I started like 09, 2010. But they had already been around for years making, unlicensed and very, very crappy figures. Very crappy, materials were crappy, the bodies were crappy. But again, back then that was like,
that was much better than a 3.75 figure.
But it was cut right, and it was also coming up. They were getting better slowly, but you could see the difference between a Hot Toy like police officer figure, a Hot Toy fireman figure, and then you go to a Hot Toy military figure. Just from that shift, huge difference in the heads, huge difference in the materials, the designs, the everything, the quality from just this one line to this other one. Amazing. If you've never seen a Hot Toy military figure, go look them up. They are beautiful.
Yeah, and then again, they give gotten better and better, and I understand what you're saying, because I always refer to like my first Avenger, Captain America. When I got that figure, I thought it was like the best thing ever made, and now and then I said, and then now I look at my Endgame Captain America and look at them next to each other, and you're like, what is this?
And that's what I mean. Like, and even so, that first Captain America was beautiful when it came out. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
but
absolutely.
Look how much better the heads have gotten from then. So imagine from when I started, how much better they've gotten.
Exactly. And with that, so you being in the collecting game forever, you were more of a private collector though, right? I mean, you didn't really engage in a lot of community stuff up until fairly recently.
So it's funny because I started collecting, I didn't know that I was never big into Facebook. Actually, during that time when I started collecting, in between that time, I deactivated my Facebook for a while, like literally like years. So I wasn't on Facebook at all. And so I got back on Facebook, but I didn't know that there were groups. I didn't know that there were forums. I do nothing. I was just like, oh, whatever. Then slowly I started finding groups. And I remember the first group I found was OSR. And I got blocked from that group within 2 months.
Oh wow. And that was that 1/6 Republic?
OneSixthJedi Republic. They were like the number one group, back then, from what I understand. Super, super big, but you couldn't say anything that went against what the moderators said. If you were to dislike something that the moderators liked, they would delete your comment, they would block you, they would remove you. And that's what the hobby was back then. It was like, OSR. And if you weren't part of, the kiss ass, then you didn't belong.
Right. And
So
maybe a couple of fan websites or something like that. There wasn't really.
But again, I thought this was like the only one. You know what I mean? Like this was like, oh, this is the big thing. And so that's my experience with that. And then after that, I was like, oh, so I started looking for more. And then there were more, but nobody was as big as them. And obviously, years later, I still don't know anything about them, like, at all. Like, I don't know if they're still around. If they are, I have no idea.
Right.
But there are obviously other groups now where you could actually feel like you're free to do and judge and have your opinion. You know what I mean? Back then, you felt like you couldn't. And a lot of people you ask right now, they're banned from that group for that same reason. A lot of people. A lot. Yep.
So it's very one-sided and kind of authoritarian almost, but
exactly.
But now, like you said, there's this, the community has exploded over, I'd say, what do you think, like the past 2-3 years, or do you think it's grown just exponentially since then?
Well, from when I started, I feel like it was already big, and I feel like it's always been very big in Asia. Asia, Japan, Korea, like those places who are known, the places that are known for making really good toys. You have
Right.
Takara Tomy. Takara Tomy has been around for how long? Japanese company making
decades.
Exactly. So they've been on that game for years. You know what I mean? Making good stuff. So the community has always been big. When I got into it, though, I didn't really see how big it was because, again, the only thing that I saw was OSR. And from what I remember, there was a lot of like tons and tons, thousands of members in the community already. And again, not including the people who weren't in the community. You know what I mean? Because there are collectors that are not involved in any of this at all. They just know about the products. They see something, they like it, they collect for themselves. Let me give you a funny story. One of my patients, who is a dentist, okay? He so I do house visits.
Yeah, you say you pinch patients, right? So what's I'm sorry.
So he calls me whenever he wants acupuncture, and I go to his house. Okay, so again, he's a dentist, plenty of money. His employee is also my patient, which is how he found out about me, and she's obviously on my social media, so she told him about my collection because you've seen my collection. Just happens to be on the phone, shows him she's like, he collects that stuff. She's like, oh my god. She's like, you don't even know. So he invites me to his house. So I had been to his house already, but I didn't know that he collected at all. So he invites me a second time, obviously for treatment. Now this time he goes, because the first time we went in his bedroom, so I have to set up my table and everything in his bedroom. This time he goes, do you mind going to the basement? I was like, no. I was like, not at all. Whatever you want me to set up, I'll set up. This guy's color, obviously nowhere near mine, but this guy had statues. He had an Ecto-1. He had the Ghostbusters. He had like Hot Toys, like he had Mike Tyson. He had Muhammad Ali. So again, quiet collector, sick pieces. Like I said, he had these statues. I was like, oh my god. He had the Ninja Turtle, the quarter scale NECA Ninja Turtles.
Oh,
This guy had, and again, I can guarantee you 1,000%, this guy is not in a single group.
Oh yeah, I'm sure.
So that's what I mean. So the community has always been big, but I was not involved in it at all. Like I would be like the outsider, always scrolling through the group, never saying a word, just seeing what people are posting, seeing people's figures. One thing that I feel like has died down, and it might just be my own opinion. the custom work. I feel like I don't see as much custom. Like obviously we do see it, but I
Right.
feel like back then I used to see people doing customs nonstop, left and right. Now, like I said, I see them absolutely, but not as much as
Like it was
back
very
then. Oh,
prominent back then.
everybody and I just posted because I just opened my Gambit figure, my Gambit, and I don't. You'll see the pictures, but I have a custom Gambit that I made from X-Men Wolverine the first movie. What's it called?
The
X-Men
the Wolverine
Origins.
Origins.
X-Men or Wolverine Origins, whatever it's called. I made a custom from that movie because back then there were that's another thing. A lot of companies were making head sculpts from these actors, just head sculpts, like for every actor. You don't see that as much anymore. You know what I mean?
Right,
So
right. That was just like they're just making head sculpts to make head sculpts.
right. They were making exactly. They were just making head sculpt out there, and it was awesome because Hot Toys and a lot of people don't even know this. Hot Toys was selling bodies at one point. These bodies were about $60 to $70. I think it was like $70. You obviously you wanted the Hot Toys body because everybody else's body was trash. Everybody else's body was flimsy. Everybody else's body was not good. So you wanted Hot Toys bodies, and they made about I want to say like four to six bodies, maybe might be too much, maybe about 4 or 5. One was thin, one was muscular, one was regular. Well, you know what I mean? So they had one was narrow shoulder, one was regular shoulder. So they had a bunch of actually here.
Yeah, they were like the true type or something like that, right?
That's exactly what they were.
Oh, yeah, you have one right there. Look at that.
I have one right here. So I used to buy these by the dozen. So that's why I was able to make so many customs because it was just that much easier back then. The outfits, you could buy outfits from everybody. Everybody was making outfits. So what I feel happened was people saw how expensive it was to buy figures. So they were making their own figures and companies were making it easier for people to make their own stuff.
Right.
Now it's nowhere near that. Yeah, you have companies making head sculpts, but they're not making as many. They're not making as much, and they're not making the different variety. They're not. It's not. I feel like it's what's hot and not what it used to be. Meaning, like you'll have 3 companies make an Iron Man head sculpt. You know what I mean? Like a Tony Stark head sculpt.
Yeah.
Back then, you were having Ron Perlman head sculpt for no reason. You would have, you know what I mean? Like it was just the most random stuff for people to make customs and kit bags.
Right. So you're like, well, shit, I could just pick up a true type body and get some custom tailoring done, and now I've created my own figure.
Exactly. And I did a bunch of those.
Wow. So it's a lot. It was crazy then. And you can just kind of, as somebody who's creative, like you could just have a field day essentially. Create whatever the hell you wanted back then.
That was happening a lot. You would have people come up with these figures that they created themselves, and a lot of them were in Asia, Singapore, Philippines.
Oh yeah, like you said, it's hugely, it's more of a culture almost overseas.
Indonesia, a lot of collectors, but again, because they're expensive, I feel like because they couldn't afford, they would make their own stuff. Like literally, not I'm talking about. Not like buying like a thing and making it from scratch. The outfit,
right.
The clothing, the accessory, like the crazy, like the amount of artistry that went into these things was incredible. Again, I haven't seen. Yeah, you have people like Hendra Fast. I don't know if you've seen him. He's got he makes the custom figures out of Iron Man figures. So he'll make like a Deadpool out of a red Iron Man. He'll make like he's in my group. He posts whenever he made a War Machine figure, not a War Machine, a Punisher figure out of a War Machine Iron Man body. Like he makes the craziest thing. He custom paints them. And they're really, really cool. He's like the main one that I've seen, constantly posting stuff like that.
Just constantly. Okay. No, I don't think I've seen his. I know of Hannah Lee. She does a lot of
Hannah Lee came out of nowhere. Hannah
Nowhere,
Lee,
yeah.
I have never heard of her since I started ever. She got on the scene, boom, and then just took off. Her items, like very cool stuff. I have never seen anything that she's always posting on there. They're very, very cool pieces, but very, very expensive.
Not cheap.
And my thing is, if you're gonna spend all this money on like a nobody figure, to me, again, people do it all the time, and there's nothing wrong with that. You know what I mean? Like, to me, getting a figure for $500, $600, $700 that is one of one, but I know that if I'm gonna go sell this figure, nobody's gonna want it because there's only one of one, and
Right.
I bought it because it's something appealing to me. There may be people who don't like it. So then I'm stuck with this $600, $700 figure if I ever want to resell it. You know what I mean? So that's why I don't go out that far when it comes to money or buying customs either.
Well, and I guess the same time, right? It's you were in the past with it anyway, where it was like it was so abundant anyway that it's kind of a switch in your head, being like, I used to be able to build stuff, maybe not this quality, but damn close for much, much less.
Right. And another thing was, so you have, like I said, you have the companies. So let me give you an example. You used to be able to get things like, like pair of jeans.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, I'll give you an example. Shia LaBeouf head sculpt.
Oh, wow. Yeah, look at that.
Look, I don't know who the hell this is. It looks like a Christian Bale head sculpt, but like a weird one.
Yeah.
See, so I have a ton. Look at this. Look, I don't even. This is. Oh no, this is from a figure. So yeah, so they've made over the years but the whole game shifted at one point. It went from more custom pieces to more Hot Toys and more, branded figures.
Right, and that's kind of where, which kind of leads me into my next question, I suppose, because that's where the evolution it took place. And because I'm wondering, like, you started then, right? And that's a pretty general idea of like what it was like back in the day. But now, like, what do you think the differences are now? Like I said, it is Hot Toys, but now we have this community that's like evolving like pretty much every day now, with whether there's new content creators or old content creators or these Facebook groups everywhere. It's changed quite a lot. I mean, is there a lot of different, like, do you think that the collecting community now is for the better?
Well, you're always gonna have your shitty people, you're always gonna have your good people, like
Right.
everything else. The one thing I did notice there was a big shift was how mainstream, and I can't even say that because I feel like it's mainstream now because we're so involved in it that it feels like we're around it 24/7. But like an outsider, it's not gonna know about that unless you're looking for, you know what I mean? So
Right.
being in it now, like as deep as I'm into it right now, I feel like, to me, it feels like it's more mainstream because there's so many people, that I'm seeing now. You know what I mean? Like that I see constantly. Groups have 1,000, 2,000. YouTubers, thousands of people. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
There's a lot of people in it, but again, not everybody's in it for the right reasons. There's a lot of people who are in it to feel like they're part of something so big. You know what I mean? They just want to feel like, oh yeah, like I'm part of this
Like a
this
sense of
community.
belonging, or
Yeah, like, you know what I mean? And again, there's nothing wrong with trying to feel like you're part of something. It's just, if you're gonna do that and bring negativity into the hobby, don't bother. You know what I mean? Like, if you're not
agreed,
really
yeah.
gonna be collecting and you're just gonna bring drama and negativity into the community just because you feel like you're entitled because you own 2 figures, 3 figures, 5 figures, 10 figures, like, don't bother. Like, we don't, there's enough negativity in the world 24/7. Like, we don't need, we get into this to get away from all that stuff. You know what I mean? To find our happy place. And,
right. This is an
people,
escape.
Right. And then you got people who are constantly just negative. Like nobody wants to be around that. Nobody wants to see that.
Yeah, I agree. And you feel like there's more of that now than there was then? Because there's the community's grown, so naturally, like the larger the audience, the larger the mix of audience that it creates.
I'm gonna say yes because I'm more directly involved with it as well. You know what I mean? Like I've gotten hate from these people personally. You know what I mean?
Oh, really?
Yeah, 100%. I had this guy actually in one of the streams last week. He said in the chat something to the effect of, I really like Fabio now, a happy subscriber of 1/6 and it's funny because I had seen that guy for months, a while back, constantly. He was very active. And I want to say he was in my group at one point. And all of a sudden he disappeared. But again, I don't know who leaves the group or not. You know what I mean? Once they leave, like you don't know who left.
Right.
So,
and that's what 1/6 is. That's your group.
Yeah, that's my group. So
okay.
What happened was the guy sent that message and I was like, oh, I appreciate it. And then I messaged him privately and I said, why did you feel like this is exactly what I said. I said, what did I do to make you feel this way? Whatever you were feeling about me, what did I do? That's what I said. I said, what did I do to make you feel?
Well, and what did he say again? Because I don't think I quite caught that.
He said something to the effect of, he said he put that he was a proud member. He goes, I'm a proud member of 1/6 He goes, I didn't really like Fabio before, but now I'm learning to.
Oh, I saw that comment. I
actually know exactly. Yeah, that's what I'm saying. Yeah. I think you were there.
Yeah.
And so I didn't know what he was talking about. But then so I messaged him, privately, and I said, listen, what did I do? He goes, to be honest, I kind of judged you, without really knowing you. He said, I thought that you were just coming on these shows to show off your collection. So this is what he said, so so we had a conversation, nothing bad. It was, actually, it was a good conversation because I learned his view on me. You know what I mean?
Right.
Again, without knowing me, people just develop views on people. It's just human nature, So that to me was like, wow, I'm like the most quiet guy in the community, for years. I had big YouTubers in the community at that time constantly tell me, listen, if you start posting your stuff, you're going to be a king in the community. They would tell me this. I have conversations of those comments. Still, I was like, it's not me. I don't need to be showing anything off. I don't need to think, it's just, I'm not a show off, never have been. What I have, I got for me. I didn't get.
Yeah, this is your collection. Like you said.
I didn't get this to show off. I didn't get this to make anybody feel bad. I didn't get, I get stuff because I want to for me. You don't like it, that's your problem. It's not for you, it's for me. You know what I mean? So for somebody to say that, it's like, wow, I've been around for that many years to myself, quiet, not posting anything, not show, and I'm coming off as like I'm a show off. It's insane, So he goes, yeah, I thought you just came on these shows to show off your collection, but it's like, I didn't choose to be at a show to show off my collection. You know what I mean? Like somebody has to ask me, hey, would you like to come on my show?
And that's essentially how it started, right? Because you don't really do content. Like you'll put out your videos of very basic, hey, check out this figure, or most recently a tour because you've amassed such a collection, but you are on stream, so that again, that just kind of happened. People asked you and eventually you were like, okay, I'll come on and we can chat, basically.
Right. So how that started was, I had posted I think it was a picture of one of my walls. Actually it was this wall back here.
Okay.
When it was updated on Dante's group. He messaged me. We started speaking, and then he said, "Oh, listen, I would like to have you on my show. Talk about your collection." He's like, "I love your collection." That's how that started. Dante extended his invitation to me to go on his show. Obviously, he invited me, and that's where that started. But I was never like messaging, people, "Hey, let me on your show so I could show my collection." Like, that's impossible. That would never happen,
Right,
and,
right.
And the reason why it caught Dante's attention was the size of the collection, But I was never like, "Oh, listen, like, have me on your show because I have this." You know what I mean? Like, never. I don't like being the, and I've said this. You could go back on any stream that I ever said this on. It's the same thing. I don't like being the center of attention. I don't like being on TV. I don't like being recorded. I don't like being on video. I don't like, I don't like any of that. It was never me.
Right. Like I said, you were always it was very private. This is my collection, and then it just kind of happened that way.
I was never into competing with anybody. I was never like, "Oh, you got this, I'm going to get this." Never. Especially with this hobby. This is the one hobby you do not want to compete in because you'll get in a lot of trouble real quick. You know what I mean? Like, you'll be in debt. If you don't have the money to do something like that, you'll be in debt immediately because
right, like trying to buy like day one over and over and over.
But not only that, but even Sideshow. You buy Sideshow, you buy this figure and that figure, this statue. That's a lot of money.
Yeah, it adds up.
Yeah, people don't just collect from 1/6. They collect statues. They collect 1/4. They collect everything. So what I mean is, with the competition aspect, like, this is not a hobby to compete in. If you like something and you want to get it. If it's popular and you like it and you want to get it, get it. But if you're getting things just for the hell of it, just to say you have it, again, if you have the money, God bless you. But if you don't, and you do this just to show off, take pictures, that's another thing that people do a lot. Again, to feel like they belong. They'll buy figures. They'll take pictures. "Oh, look what I just got." Display it for a week or two. You'll see it back on sale.
Yeah, you see that a lot now. That's a huge
lot. That's another thing that I didn't see before. Another thing, with that topic, buying figures below retail. You have people in the community pretty much demanding to purchase figures below retail. Last week or the week before, not even gonna lie, I saw a specific comment, and I wish I would have screenshotted it, but I was like, it was from somebody that we know from the stream, so that's why I didn't say anything. But it was literally looking for this figure. I know it's up for retail on Sideshow, looking to pay less than that. So think about how that sounds. So let's say you bought a figure for retail, brand new.
Right.
You want to sell it now. So obviously, you as a buyer of this figure, you're not going to be looking to lose money. I don't think anybody is,
of course.
Right?
No, yeah, nobody is.
There are situations in life where you need money immediately.
Sure.
Therefore, it's understandable that if you want to sell something quickly, you're going to sell it below what it's worth to get that money quickly. Common sense, nothing wrong about that. But when it becomes a habit, it destroys the market, especially the reseller market, on whether it's the groups or on eBay, even though eBay doesn't, it's a completely different world. But in the groups alone, because you look at the groups because they're supposed to be cheaper than eBay, right?
Right.
So you're looking for this to get a better deal than eBay. But when you're looking to buy figures and they're below retail, it's like, so when I go sell my figures, they're going to be this low because people expect below retail. You know what I mean? So that does is just create a bad situation for the whole community. So my only thing, and like I said, I've said this before, if you're going to buy a figure, okay, to feel like you're part of the community, at least give it value. You know what I mean? If you're going to sell it, sell it for retail. If you really need money that second, sell it for retail. Keep the value of the figure. Do not ruin it, because the more people do that, the more people are going to expect, well, there's a lot of people selling below retail, so I don't need to pay anything above retail because I could get it for less. That's unrealistic for a hot toy.
Yeah, and on top of that, it's going to cause chaos because the more that happens, the more I think more people will be like, you know what, I'm going to forego purchasing this right now from Sideshow because in a couple of weeks or a month or so, people are going to be selling it below retail.
Exactly, and that ruins the entire hobby for everybody.
Yeah, everybody. Yeah. Well, that's so. Let me. You know, I was curious because you got me thinking about that. I just kind of want to chime right back to what we were saying when you had the person from the chat, right?
Oh,
so that made me think about this. So, like, how did now he did say that he said, you know, hey, I openly, you know, tells you, I guess I judged you. I actually like you now because I got to. But how does that make you feel? Like, as you know what I'm saying? Because that's the thing. Like, people sometimes don't know us, and I think that's one of the great things about doing these one-on-ones is that people get to learn more about us. We're not just here as a face on a panel. You know what I'm saying?
Absolutely. So stuff like that, you know, he doesn't know me.
Right.
So I don't hold it against him because I know he doesn't know me. You know what I mean? Like, at all. So the thing is, it's like, that's a lesson learned to him because now it's like, shit, I shouldn't judge people so quickly. You know what I mean?
Right. And that's how he said it too. He opened up and said, hey, I was wrong.
But no, and he said it to me directly on the text message. He said,
right, as well.
He said, listen, you know, I apologize for judging you, you know, too soon, blah, blah, blah. He said it. But again, somebody doesn't like me. I know I couldn't have possibly done anything to anybody to dislike me. People just dislike people. They dislike people's personalities. They dislike people's, you know, the way they look. They dislike people because of the way they talk. People just dislike things for their own reasons. And that's fine. You know, I don't expect everybody to like me. Why? You know what I mean? Like,
right.
Nobody has to like me. But the thing is, how can you dislike something you don't know? You know what I mean?
True.
So which is why my question was, what did I do? Because if I'm doing something that's making me look bad in the community or making me do something to the community that's making it a negative thing for other people.
Right. He might not be the only one now that it's brought to your attention.
So I'm going to address it. So I'm going to be like, so you know, what am I doing wrong? Because I don't want to be, you know, come off like this hypocrite collector that's, you know, loves hot toys and loves this, but like is a scumbag or is an asshole. You know what I mean? Like, that's not, and I know I'm not that person. So that's why I was very curious on what did he see that like made him feel, he like got out of the group and everything. So that's what I wanted to know. Like, what did I do to him to make him feel that way? But again, no, I don't have an issue with him. You know, I don't hate him. I don't dislike him. That's his personal opinion
of course.
on me. Yeah, that was his personal opinion on me. He's allowed to have his opinion. But again, anybody who dislikes me, what am I going to do about it? I'm going to cry about it? You know what I mean? Like, I can't, like, you can't please everybody. And we all know that. Not everybody's going to like you. And that's just life. You have to make the best out of it and figure out, is everybody not liking you affecting your life? Or does it,
it shouldn't. Yeah.
Right. Does it matter or not? You know, if somebody's going to affect how you feel about your life, should be your family. That's it.
Yeah.
That's it.
Anybody, or your close friends or something like.
Right. Like close people to you.
Yeah.
You know,
close. Yeah.
Right. Like people that you really appreciate their opinion and appreciate, you know, how they view you and stuff like that. That's what you should worry about. If you're doing things that are affecting those people. But, you know, people who don't know you, you can't expect people who don't, and the people who like you without knowing you, it's like, what is it that you like? Because I would ask that question too. Somebody said, oh, you know, blah, blah, blah. What is it that you like? So I know that what I'm doing is making the community positive. You know what I mean?
Right. So it's both sides of the spectrum. What did I do that's coming off negative? But what did I do that's, because that you find, you know, and that's not like you're, it's not like an act, like, because none of us, like the people that we know, like we are who we are on and off screen. you know, but to see somebody come up and say, well, I really don't like this. And you're like, well, wait a minute. Why? What did I, you know, or I really like you. Well, okay. What do you like about me? Is it the attitude? Is it my like, you know, things like that, because you're right. It's like it's almost like watching a television show or a movie and you're like, wow, that movie's amazing. And I tell you this, I go, Fabio, you got to watch this movie. And then you watch it and you're like, I could not tell what was amazing about this whatsoever. Right. And that's how it is here.
Everybody has their own opinion and everybody's entitled to it. And that's it. You know, that's all you can do. If you know, if like I said, if it was something, if that guy hadn't mentioned that, I would have never known. I would have never known. You know what I mean? He left the group. That was it. I never knew who it was, why it happened, nothing. Now that it was obvious to me because he said it, I'm going to find out what the issue was. And that's the only thing I can do. I could have easily ignored him and said, you know, screw you, but I'm not that person. You know what I mean? Like he's not, he doesn't bother me. He didn't bother me by leaving the group. Right? He just did it. You know, he had his 100% in his right to say, you know what? I'm not happy here. I'm going to leave. What am I going to do?
Yeah,
you got to stay. Right. You know what I mean? Like, so.
Yeah. Well, I get that, and that's cool that he had reached out, and then you know chimed back in.
Absolutely, that was very nice. That was very nice because at least he let it be known, you know, how he felt.
Yeah.
You know, and it's, like I said, I'm out of all of you guys with shows and stuff, I'm like the one at the bottom. You know what I mean? Because I don't do any of this. You know what I mean? So it's crazy how I'm not in the public eye like you guys are constantly, and like for somebody to feel that way about somebody who's like at the bar is like, you know what I mean? It's like the craziest thing.
It's very, and well, you bring a point. Maybe like he's, you know, some people, like he had mentioned, he thought he judged you. It was like, oh well, you just have this crazy collection and you're here to show it off. And even if that was the case, right, I mean it's at the end of the day, that's your decision, and you can respect somebody for not wanting to see that. But for him to branch out after seeing you on shows and be like, wow, actually, I'm not really getting that vibe from him anymore. I was wrong.
Right. Which is, again, I don't ever, and you know what I think it is, though? I think what caused his views on that, and I'm going to say specifically Dante, because Dante started with this whole, you know, you have the biggest collection I've ever seen. You know, and he does, it's not malicious. He does it because, you know, he likes my collection. And even before, like, we were friends, like when he first invited me, he was like, you got the crazy, you know. So I feel like him constantly saying that while having me on his shows came off as, that guy's only here to show off his collection, because that's what Dante's always saying. Oh, he's got the biggest collection. He's got the biggest collection. So I have a feeling that's where that came from.
I think you might be right, because I even do it to you. When you're on the show,
Aries, but I'm talking about like back then in the beginning, you know what I mean?
Right.
So I would understand that in the very beginning. Now, you know, people know about, you know, at least the people who are in the chats, you know, they know about my collection. Like I said, you know, Dante does it, Aries does it, you do it.
But it's more like a running, it's like a running gag almost. Like, oh, Fabio's going to get 4 of them or something because your collection's so huge.
Exactly.
But I think maybe that's where people get confused. Like we're kind of playing around, and it's like because we know, and that's not right.
So Dante saying that, I feel like, you know, and people, you know, constantly hearing this is like, oh, like fuck this guy. You know what I mean? Like they don't, and to a certain extent too, you know, there's jealousy, you know, there's envy.
Sure, of course.
You know, people would like to be able to afford a lot, to have a lot. Again, they may not have the funds, they may not have the room, you know. So some people who wish to have more, it bothers them that they can't. So what do? You know, and I'm not talking about this guy specifically, I'm just talking about people in general.
Right.
They the only thing they could do is be negative. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Just be negative because they're unhappy with themselves. So what are you going to do? You're going to go attack somebody because you're unhappy. And that's usually what bullies do. You know, haters do. You know, they're unhappy with themselves. So what do? They go pick on somebody else so they can feel good about themselves. And that's how it works. So that's why I can't be angry at somebody judging me without knowing me. Like, how is that my fault that you're judging me? That's your fault. You know what I mean? You should have taken out the time and messaged me and said, oh, hey, what's up? Like, I ask me anything. If you ask anybody who has ever messaged me, I respond pretty quickly. They ask me questions, I never not respond. I always give them my best answer.
I try to be helpful.
I never,
Whatever.
absolutely, I never lie to people about anything. I give them my opinion. They want to take it, fine. They don't, fine. But all I can do is be myself, be honest. Whatever happens after that, it's not my problem because I'm true to myself.
No, yeah, that's the most important. And anything, even outside collecting, just being true to who you are, know your voice, know who you are, and stand your ground on things. Because everybody has different opinions, and certainly not this person, right? They reached out to you. They were not the bully. They were like, hey, I apologize.
And the way he went about it too, very, very peaceful. He just chose to leave the group, and that was it. He never cursed me out. He never said anything negative to me. He never, you know what I mean? He wasn't like that at all.
Right.
He felt, you know what? I'm unhappy in this group. I'm out.
Yeah.
Which is perfectly fine. Yeah, it's perfectly fine.
Well, I think again that's another reason why being on there's times where like you're on a stream and there's a panel, you guys are talking about discussions, you're voicing your opinion on whatever it is at the time, and that's it, and then the show basically wraps. So people don't really know who that person is, myself included, until I think things like this, we can talk, we can one-on-one and say, kind of share our story and our journey, and keep in mind, even if it was overnight, your collection is not an overnight thing. I mean, you've been collecting for 15 years, so you've amassed this large quantity that just didn't fall on your lap.
That's another thing. People think that like this just came like within a year, like this. Oh, like he's got all this stuff. Like what the fuck, But this is, a lot of money put into this. This is something that, because of how passionate I am, just, anything that I'm passionate about, me as a person, like, I'm like overboard with it. You know what I mean? Like, I'm like,
you're like all in, like,
yeah, like balls deep in, you know what I mean? Like,
yeah,
that, like hardcore. Like, I get really, when I really, really like something, enjoy something, I'm very, very into it. So, again, a lot of time, a lot of money, dedication, a lot of waiting too, because not only do we have to wait for figures, but there were figures that I've missed over time. For example, I recently just got, and you guys saw the copper stormtrooper.
Right. Yeah.
I've been looking for that figure for years. I didn't even know it existed until somebody posted it years ago, and I was like, "What?" I was like, where did this come from? Like, I'm on top of Sideshow, 24/7. Where did this come from? And again, it was an Asian release only, and so I missed a bunch of figures like that. And so that's my thing. I waited. There's still figures that I would like right now from back then that I missed out on. They're unrealistic because they're over $2,000, but doesn't mean I don't want them. You know what I mean?
Yeah, sure.
So I've waited for a lot of figures. So this wasn't an overnight thing at all. This took a lot of time.
Well, and same with you getting on a stream. It's like you've already mentioned that you're kind of a private person as it was. Your collection's your collection. You don't like being on camera, things like that. Maybe, just our human, I don't even want to say insecurities, but that's not our jam. We didn't set out to do this. And then finally you're like, okay, well, I'm being, people are looking at my stuff. They invited me on. I'm going to kind of dip my toes into this and see. And then now you're having fun, but all of a sudden to somebody who's maybe new to this is seeing you as just coming in, and all of a sudden this guy's got a crazy collection. What is he doing? He doesn't create content. Is he just here to show it off? Blah blah blah. And people's minds just come to their own conclusions, and that's where you're saying that's very judgmental. And I mean, for someone to come to you and be like, "Hey, I'm sorry," that's really cool.
No, 100%. And like you said, this hobby alone, this is not something that's like, what's the word I'm looking for? This is not something that's just like, collecting matchbox cars. You know what I mean?
Right.
It's more in depth than that. You know what I mean? This is not just a little piece of metal. This is not just like a little random, like this is, this is art. This is, so again, very expensive. So I understand why people get passionate about, this stuff. Like, I get it 100%. But again, me being in it for so long, I understand what it is. So I could never get upset or disappointed or, oh my God, like, no, because at the end of the day, whatever we get is going to be incredible, and it's going to be the best on the market anyway.
Right, because you've seen it since the beginning, how it's gotten just progressively better and better. And I joke about that sometimes, when I mention the first Avenger cap to the Endgame cap, and then I'm like, wow, okay, now it's 2022. What are these figures going to look like in 2032?
Exactly. That's what makes it exciting, and that's why the thought of me like stopping now, not even happening. You know what I mean? Like, there's no
Right.
way that I'm going to miss out on all these figures, from 3 years from now, 5 years from now. You know what I mean? Like, they're going to come out. They're only going to get better and better and better and better and better. And so I can't picture myself. I will get rid of all my old stuff before I stop collecting.
Wow.
Yeah, that's how much I don't want to stop. I will get rid of all my old stuff to keep bringing in the new stuff. And the thought of selling something because I'm a completist, it scares the hell out of me because it doesn't even cross my mind.
Right. Yeah, you're just like, nope, I have this. I complete it, whether it's Hot Toys, third party, whatever it is. If I complete it, I complete it. And now if I just kind of pluck this one out, it's chaos.
So
right?
I would have to sell. So I would have to sell the entire line for me to be comfortable because I can't see one figure missing. You know what I mean?
Right.
So I'm like, no way. I'm like, there's no way.
Well, so you are looking forward. So that I guess that before we wrap, then that kind of brings me into that last question, because we're talking about the future of Hot Toys in general, like how much better they're getting. I mean, do you have any with that? Because you say you are kind of running out of room there, and maybe things are going to be mixed up. Do you have are there any goals you're like trying to achieve now as your I guess I should say for your display / collection? You know what I mean? Like, are you trying to plan into something to look forward to there?
So, like we talked about earlier, I would love the module cases. I would love to have, that entire, just like this entire wall is these. I would love to have that whole side to be module cases. But again, the money, the time to wait for them, and again, it's not just, oh, let me just buy, the case. There are different models, different sizes, different looks. So, I would have to do a lot of research on that. Figure out what I do have. Is everything good? Because that's another thing. Is everything that I have going to fit in all these cases?
Right.
There's a chance that they may not, So I have to figure out how many of which I would need, how many different sizes, how many of this size, how many of that size, So it's not just a simple click and buy, It's a lot of stuff that I need to look into. But if I were to do anything, it would be that. Module cases, get rid of the details. Even though I love them, they do the job. They're great. The only thing I wish that was different with the details is the lighting. I wish they came pre-lit, because if they came pre-lit, it would change the game 100%. I use like a lot of other people, LED strips all around the details, which works great, but over time starts peeling off. The glue starts coming off, so it starts bubbling.
Yep.
So it's just a pain, and it doesn't look nice. And then you either got to figure out a way to fix it. You could either try to glue it onto the wood. Obviously, you're not going to glue it onto the glass, but you could do it onto the wood, top and bottom. What are you going to do if the glass starts peeling? That's a problem, So those things are annoying with the details, but when it comes to the use, they're great.
That is true. That is true. That's partly why I kind of built my own custom, because I was tired of dealing with that. And it's such a time, right? Like you said, like there's so much new stuff coming and to look forward to. And really before we go, I was thinking that because people are coming in, as we know, the community is getting larger and larger. Any advice for people coming into the collection game, I should say? Because you've been in it for so long, you have so much wisdom to part.
Well, That would have to be do your research, because people get into the hobby and they start. I'm speaking about somebody specifically
Okay.
who messages me constantly to, I guess he just started and he's been buying everything, literally everything.
That's not good.
So, right. So, but again, he'll ask me, listen, do you think this price is good for this? He messaged me anytime he wants. He'll say he's messaged me literally over like 100 times by now. Listen, I could get this figure for this much. Do you think it's expensive? Listen, I could get this figure. Do you think, how much do you think I could get this figure for? So, I help him out in that way. But, he has no idea what the hell's going on. You know what I mean? He's just buying to buy because he wants to have this collection. But he's not, he's not really looking for any information besides how much should I spend for this. Period. That's all he cares about. So do your research, at this level now where Hot Toys is, it's completely different than when I started, specifically with reissue and stuff. Back then, the figures weren't coming out as fast as they do. Not as fast. They weren't getting as many figures back then as they do now. Now we're getting announcements all the time. Back then, very, very rare, because they were not as big. They're not as big. So that's my advice, to do your research, because there's a lot of things that are out now that are going to be reissued at some point, or things that are you may have missed in the past that are going to be reissued at some point. So instead of spending a lot of money on them now, just wait. A lot of people don't know that. Aries pulled up an eBay sale in one of his streams a few streams ago, and I just happened to be on it. It was me and him, one of his shows, and he says to me, for an R2D2, somebody paid like $400 and something.
Oh yeah, I can believe it.
Right, but it's like, really, like $400 and something for an R2? Like, no, like way too much for that.
Right, and if you wait, it's inevitable.
Whoever purchased that, I can guarantee you either wanted it really, really bad, or didn't even know, anything about the market.
Right,
because it doesn't make sense. You know what I mean? To spend all that money for an R2. Like, I get it, $400 something for a full size figure, fine, but an R2D2, like, come on.
Yeah, I get that, and they do, and eventually things will be reissued. I think patience is definitely, I think, what people need, and when you're saying do your research and things like that, does that, because I know you're not, you're part of the community, not so much as content creating, but there's a lot out there. Do you think that that's good advice for people coming in, is to watch content creators and try to form an opinion based off of others' opinions?
Well, I feel like that's the job that you guys have. You know what I mean? As YouTubers, as reviewers, as people who collect. Anybody who has a voice in a platform, right? Specifically on YouTube, should be able to use it to help others. So if, for example, somebody came in to collect and they just bought their first figure, they're going to go on looking for stuff, for reviews and stuff.
Right, unboxing, review, something.
Correct. So the job that the YouTubers have is to give your 100% honest opinion on whatever it is that you're doing, whether it's streaming, whether it's reviewing, whether it's whatever it is that you guys are doing. You should be, or at least your goal should be, to try to be helpful to somebody else.
Absolutely.
So absolutely, if somebody's going to collect, watch. You're always going to find the YouTuber that you like. You're always going to gravitate towards the person that you click with. You know what I mean? You like their personality. You like their attitude. You like, the way they talk. You like, their content, you like their, their opinions.
Right. It's
So
like what we were saying earlier, like different tastes, different strokes for different folks, basically.
right. So people do, a lot of people do that. They they'll get the figure even before buying. They'll look for their favorite YouTuber or YouTubers, and
Mm.
they'll create their own opinion off of the other opinions that they heard, and they'll look at the, I would assume and hope that that's what they're doing. Look at the
Right.
good,
Right.
look at the bad, and go from there. You know what I mean? Then they make their own choice. So I feel like, as a YouTuber, you guys, that should be your job, to give people honest opinions.
Yeah. Yeah. Honest is because that's how I mean, that's strictly all I operate on. I can't feel it's just in my core, my core personal beliefs. I couldn't be on a screen or speaking to the public and saying, this is absolutely amazing. Please, go ahead and get this. And then off screen be like, hey, actually this thing's not that good. Guys.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? It's not who I am. So I would say that as well. I'd kind of hearken the same sentiment as if you're watching, channels, watch multiples and kind of try to form an, it's like you said, it's you're educating yourself before making that investment.
And also be careful with, this is for the community. Be careful with the YouTubers that you do watch, because don't forget that there are people who are sponsored by companies, and their reviews have to be everything's perfect.
Oh, that's true. There are some
And
like that.
right, so you have to be careful with, who you're watching, and also a lot of people could see, if somebody's genuine or not just by the way they're talking. So a lot of people should be able to see through the bullshit. But again, a lot of people don't do that. So that's my only thing. Just be careful with who you listen to, um, because there are a lot of people, YouTubers who they'll push you. They'll push you into something without you realizing it. You know what I mean? They'll
Right,
make something
right.
sound very, very good. Not necessarily, figures, but prices, you know, things. They'll point out things um to make the collector feel, oh, this would be good for me. But in the long run, not at
It's
all.
good for them,
Correct.
not you. Right, like actually like influencers in that respect.
Correct. Exactly. They influence a lot of people's buying figures.
Absolutely. Cool, man. Well, hey, you know what? This was great. I think we could wrap. It's a pleasure having you on. If I know you're not doing a lot of content, but you do have a collection tour. I mean, where can people find you if they want to kind of check you out and see what you're all about?
First of all, thank you for having me. It was awesome being here. I am on TikTok. I'm on Instagram. I'm on YouTube under FabsFigures, all three. Yeah, all I do pretty much is, I don't do live streams. I don't do content like that. But all I do is pretty much unboxes. I open my figures, take pictures of them, load them up for you guys to see. For people who like seeing figures, I love seeing figures, even if it's a
Right.
figure that I have. People, not everybody collects the same thing. So I love seeing collections, any collection, big, small. You collect, cars. You collect. I love seeing because at the end of the day, it's something different, something unique, something that you most likely don't have. So for somebody to take the time over years to accumulate a bunch of things, that's dedication. You know what I mean? That's
Right,
passion.
and then to show that off to the world,
Right.
you get
And no,
interested.
but not necessarily like show, like for example, like me, I've been collecting for years. I never showed anybody anything. Um, which is what made me start my own group, believe it or not. I was tired of being in these groups, and like, you couldn't say anything, you couldn't talk, you couldn't dislike something. So I was like, you know what? I feel like I've been around long enough, and I have a collection that's big enough for me to be able to show the world. So that's what made me create my own group. And again, I don't mean like I'm going to be worldwide and I'm going to be this huge. That's not what I mean. I mean, whoever enjoys looking at collections will enjoy, or looking at figures alone, will enjoy the stuff that I put out, because again, a lot of people will have what I have, a lot of people won't have what I have. And myself having what I have, I still look at other people's collections. I still look at other people's pictures. Again, because a collector will always enjoy collecting and looking at collections
and right, appreciating it. So for your Facebook group, for those out there if they're interested, is 6 scale evolution, right?
1/6 evolution.
Or I'm sorry, 1/6 evolution.
Yeah.
Okay, perfect. So I'll go ahead and get everybody. There'll be links here for you guys to check out Fabio. So once again, man, thank you for coming on. I look forward to doing more streams with you in the future and seeing how your collection is going to evolve as well.
Yes, thank you for having me again, and thank you guys for watching. See you guys soon.
All right, guys, we'll see you on the next one. See ya.